And we are live. Good morning, you magnificent melonheads. Today is Friday, February 10th, 2023, and we've got a busy morning going on today. Three main stories going on in the world. All of them need a little bit of time, so we're going to try to get through them. We've got the Bank of Japan made a very surprising, more hawkish announcement about a leadership change coming up. We've got Russia is cutting their oil by 500,000 barrels per day. That's going to hit oil prices. And of course, we've got Gary Gensler, who has just declared himself dictator for life in the cryptocurrency industry with a big settlement involving Kraken and staking and decentralized finance. We're going to talk about all those this morning. But first, we must shrink my big melon of a head. And let's look at what's going on in indexes. We have got stocks are down only a little bit right now. The S&P is down 6 points or 0.15. At one point this morning, it was down a whole heck of a lot more than that. We got the Dow is down 28 points or about 0.08%. It was down over 100 for a little while ago. And the NASDAQ leading the way lower, down 58 points or about 0.5%. So stocks are down, but nowhere near as bad as they could be this morning. The futures were a lot lower than that when I first opened my eyes early in the AM. Notice, though, look at the trend from yesterday. All of those gains that stocks had made off of those Disney earnings, which I told you guys in the stream yesterday morning, I did not think those Disney earnings were that good. You know, they had a little bit of a revenue beat, but that the earnings were down big year over year. And I don't think job cuts is necessarily a good sign for anything. Every day we're seeing more and more layoffs. And I guess the market slowly took off those rose-colored glasses yesterday because stocks gave up all of those gains. I think that was the right move. Looking over at the DXY, the U.S. dollar is up right now about 11 basis points. It was down substantially overnight. Look at this dip that happened last night. That was the announcement of the leadership change over at the Bank of Japan. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a few minutes. Taking a look at the DXY right now, still that 50-day moving average acting as resistance right now. Look at this button up against the ceiling. That's now, 5 days in a row. That 50-day moving average has held the Dixie down. We'll see if that continues. This announcement at the BOJ should be sending the Dixie lower right now, but we'll see what comes out of that. Looking over at the bond market right now, we have got a mixed bag. We got the short end of the curve up a couple of basis points. Not really. The 2-month is up 4 basis points. The whole middle of the curve is down, but only a couple of bips. We got the 10-year is essentially flat. Not a lot going on in the bond market. The biggest move in any direction, 5 basis points on the 4-month. Nothing really big happening in interest rates this morning. Looking over at the 10-year yield, though, this is a trend I've been keeping an eye on, this declining resistance since November. We have broken out above that in the last few days, and we also recaptured the 50-day moving average. We're now a couple of days above that line, so that would be suggesting rates going higher. We'll see if that trend continues. All right, looking over in the commodity space, we got gold is flat on the day, about $1.75 or 0.09%. Silver is at $22.17. Silver has had a tough run these last couple of days. We're up 4 cents this morning or 0.18%. Looking over at oil, that's a big one this morning, up $1.02 at 79.08 or 1.31%. That is all off of that news coming out of Russia. And natural gas is up 2 cents or 0.99%. Still watching that natural gas chart. Still have not seen the buy signal that I've been looking for. All right, let's talk about a couple of these big stories. I am going to butcher some names here. I apologize to all the individuals involved. I don't get out much, and pronunciation of Japanese names, clearly not my strong suit. But Kishida to pick Ueda for BOJ in shock as Amamiya turns the job down. All right. That's a mouthful. So what's going on right now is the Bank of Japan had this likely candidate named Amamiya, who was something of a budget hawk, who was scheduled to replace the Bank of Japan's chairman, Hirohito Kuroda. I think I said that one right. I'm trying here, guys. I'm really trying. Bear with me. All right, so Kuroda, he's stepping down in April, and this Amamiya guy was supposed to take over. Amamiya is a hawk. Kuroda is like an uber dove, like total modern monetary theory, yield curve control, print yen till the cows come home. Well, Amamiya says, no, I don't want the job. So now they're picking this Ueda guy, again, probably butchering the name. Well, Ueda is even bigger of a hawk than Amamiya was. So Bank of Japan really surprised the world last night when they announced this guy, Ueda, I don't know how to pronounce the name, but when he got the call, the market, look at what happened. This is the US dollar as measured against the yen, all right? So when you see this chart dropping, that is the yen strengthening. So as soon as this announcement was made, you see the N there, that's the news. That's the news breaking. Wham, it gets slammed down, the dollar getting weaker and weaker against the yen. And we saw that over in the Dixie chart because the yen is one of the biggest inputs to the Dixie, right? We had this big drop in the DXY overnight. Going back over to the yen chart, then this Ueda guy came out and he made a press release where he basically said that the current stimulus at the BOJ is appropriate and that he's not planning on making any major changes at the moment. Well, he's not the governor at the moment, so that's kind of a non-statement. Don't really read too much into that, but the market interpreted that as a dovish walkback of the initial reaction to this guy's announcement. And so the dollar rallied against the yen started to weaken. And now we're left with this kind of declining trend, this sideways diagonal where this big dip has been eliminated. So the US dollar is weaker against the yen at the moment, but this big drop, that was wiped out by a mildly dovish statement by this incredibly hawkish new governor of the Bank of Japan. Now, this is important because the Bank of Japan is the third largest economy in the world. All right. And they have been really engaged in modern monetary theory and this yield curve control, printing a lot of money that has forced a lot of money to leave Japan and seek shelter in the US dollar. So a big change in the BOJ policy could cause that money to leave the US and head back over to Japan. That would weaken the dollar. It would weaken the dollar. That would be buoyancy for asset prices. So keep an eye on this story. This could have a big effect on things this year. All right, moving on. We have got the Russia retaliates for sanctions by announcing an oil output cut. March oil production to be cut by 500,000 barrels per day. That is significant, guys. Remember, OPEC Plus had declined to make another output cut. Was it back in November or December at the OPEC meeting? And that triggered a big sell-off in oil that lasted through January. So 500,000 barrels, not as big as some of the cuts we've seen elsewhere, but that's significant, all right? Now, some people are out there calling a bottom in oil. My friend Brian Zarb from thetechnicalchartist.com, he was calling a bottom in oil today, and I'm about 50% of the way there to agree with him. The only reason I'm not going to call a bottom in oil prices yet is these inventory builds of the last 6 or 7 weeks have been really concerning. They have been telling me there is big-time demand destruction happening in the United States. All right, so I'm a little hesitant to call a bottom in oil yet because there's still the possibility that this recession is the big one. And so 500,000 barrels a day could be offset by a collapse of economic activity in the U.S. That being said, the technicals of oil are looking a little bit better, right? We had this false breakdown out of this pattern. We broke back up. We recaptured the 50-day moving average. We retested. We bounced again. Although oil right now, you see the big wick on this last candle here. Let's zoom in on it. Oil has already given up about half of the gains it's gotten off of this Russian output cut story. So we'll keep an eye on that one, but you got to watch those inventory numbers in the oil markets, folks. That is a big one. All right, moving on from the oil story, we have got Gary Gensler hits Kraken with a $30 million settlement, prompting an outcry of regulation by enforcement. I'm going to try to give you the short one here because I know we're getting a little long. But Gary Gensler has basically said Kraken with this staking activity where you give them your cryptocurrency and basically lock it up for a period of time in exchange for a ridiculously high interest rate, that is tantamount to the sale of an unregistered security. And so the SEC filed this action against Kraken, and they're settling with Kraken for $30 million. But Gensler is saying, everybody in the DeFi platforms, everybody in the crypto space, I now consider you selling unregistered securities. You will come into compliance or face similar action. This is this is legislation by enforcement by the SEC. All right, you guys know me for a long time. I have been very critical of DeFi platforms. I've said I don't trust them. I think they're not upfront with the risks. And I've always said if somebody is promising you a risk-free 15% return, run, do not walk. So I don't trust these platforms. That being said, I trust Gary Gensler and the SEC even less than I trust these dirtbags running cryptocurrency. This is exactly what Sam Bankman-Fried was hoping to get out of all of those closed-door meetings he held with Gary Gensler that we still don't know what was discussed at those meetings. Oh, you think it was about recovering from the next pandemic? Is that really what Sam Bankman-Fried was trying to do while he was eating his cucumber in Gary Gensler's office? Okay. Yeah, I doubt it. So I don't agree with what the SEC is doing. I don't like the DeFi platforms. I don't like Kraken. I don't like Binance. I think they're crooks. I think they're snakes in the grass. But I don't like Gary Gensler. And by the way, Gary Gensler, does this mean you're done solving all the crime in the stock market? Remember Citadel? Remember when they conspired with Robinhood to take away the buy button to steal millions of dollars from the apes? Remember that? And nobody was investigated. Nobody went to jail. Nice job on that one, Gary Gensler. And, shocker, last year, a year after this happened, a year after they were allowed to change the rules mid-game to their own benefit, Citadel posted the single biggest profit of any hedge fund in history. Ooh, amazing how that works. Good job, Gary Gensler. Keep up the bad work over at the SEC. That's about all I got to say about that. And I want to send a shout out to Mike Binder from Robin RC Model. Says, good morning, Jack. Enough layoffs already? J Powell did it. Oh, but stop the press, my good friend. No, he did not do it. Check this out. I am remiss, Mike Binder. Thank you very much for the super chat, by the way. Yahoo to lay off 20% of their staff by year end, beginning this week. We did not set this up in advance. That was a very good segue, Mike. Thank you. Yahoo, who apparently I'm not the only one still using Yahoo Finance. There are still a few other people out there that use it. But they are laying off more than 20% of their staff, or around 1,600 workers, with the company's Yahoo for Business unit being slashed in half. So apparently the layoffs are not quite done yet, Mike. Thank you very much, sir, for the super chats. And, we'll see if that 4,600 number on the S&P comes to fruition. We're going to keep an eye on that one. Thanks again, sir, for the support. And I have got Nashville Pasta Man. That's a great name. Thank you for the super. It doesn't come up in StreamYard, but he is saying number one and balloons. Thank you, Nashville Pasta Man. That's a great name. I miss pasta so much, man. I got cutting the carbs. You know, carbs are the enemy. Can't eat too much pasta. Oh, God, I miss it. And thank you, Jose Orozco, very much, sir. He says, how are the candles on UNG looking? I'm not watching UNG, Jose, for the signal to make the natural gas trade. I'm watching the natural gas futures themselves. So we'll take a look at the candles. UNG is probably going to be the way I make that trade. Again, not a financial advisor, all that CYMIA stuff, guys. Go find somebody who's telling you the opposite of what I'm telling you and make up your own minds, please. But here we go. We are still not above the 9-day moving average. I am waiting for one full green candle above the 9-day moving average before I make this trade. It's tempting. This chart does look like it's trying to find a bottom. We're right there, but not there yet. So again, I'm not using the UNG chart. I'm using the actual commodity itself. UNG is a derivative of the commodity. So you should end up with pretty much the same thing. Thank you, Jose Orozco, sir. You are a gentleman and a scholar. All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up there. I want to say thank you so much for your super chats and your generosity and support of the channel. I really appreciate that. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Link down below should you feel so inclined. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I love you guys. I'll see everybody this afternoon at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time for my weekly wrap-up live stream. Yes, the intro music will be back for that live stream. I know you guys missed the intro music. And until next time, live small and dream big.